the thing about Sam is he does this kind of brain scrambling exercise, and if anybody would now like to poach any of the eggs that he's just scrambled, please raise your hand.
Can we turn this off? Can someone...
Let me turn it. That's beyond me at my capabilities. Yes.
It sounds to me, and I know the law, that the Torah is axiomatic. I can't accept that.
What do you mean it's axiomatic?
You simply assume it exists simply because various Chachamim said this. It's like saying that the poetry, which is, say, the Kabbalah, is true. And simply human constructs which are poetic and attempt to explain something are not in themselves true.
Thank you.
Torah is true, but
what's your name?
What's
your name? What's your name?
Not important at the moment.
Okay. Sorry, I just wanted to...
I can remember my name.
Okay. I just wanted to engage in a conversation with you, so that's why I'm
British or top?
Thank you. I think that's a wonderful question, and it really helps to it really helps to bring out both the absurdity and the nature of the project I'm trying to engage in. So the question is, look, first of all, this stuff is all poetic, and I'm taking it far too literally. That seems to be part of but also part of the question seems to be, look, these are kind of human gesticulations, and just because the rabbis talk about this, it doesn't mean it exists, and you're taking it as axiomatic that it exists, which is almost kind of anti-intellectual. Great question. Thank you for pushing me on that. So I'm engaging in this is just one aspect of a much wider theoretical project. Okay, the project is, irrespective of whether Judaism is true or false, right? What does it say? For instance, I have friends who are Christian theologians. Say, should I convert to Christianity? Tell me what it believes. Articulate what its axioms are. I might not accept them. I want to know what is this thing called the Trinity? How do the three parts relate to each other? Why should I accept that three things can be one? That doesn't seem to make sense to me, etc., etc., etc. And get them to articulate what it is they think. Another part of the project would be, once we've given a consistent picture of what the body of faith is, what the body of doctrine is, why on earth should I accept that? What I'm trying to do here is to take a body of literature which is obviously poetic, and say, just like, by the way, Plato's dialogues are obviously poetic, and yet they still embody theses. And I'm trying to say, well, once we've cashed out all of these metaphors, what are they a metaphor for? There seems to be a very, very central metaphor of rabbinic literature, that there's some sort of pre-existent wisdom that stands into some sort of interesting relationship to the Chumash. Before I can ask whether that's true or not, which is a really important question, of course, I need to try and figure out exactly what do you mean by pre-existent divine wisdom, and what sort of relationship are you positing between that pre-existent divine wisdom and the canonical texts of the Jewish tradition. And I'm just trying to work out, well, you could have this thing I'm calling the Pentateuchal theory, you could mean, because it's all a bit fuzzy, just like when you're trying to decode poetry, what was the poet trying to say? So you could have this thing I'm calling the Pentateuchal theory, you could have this thing I was calling the Pentateuchal plus theory, you could have, let's look at the strengths and weaknesses of what they're saying. And then another question would be, is it true? And of course, a primary thing we need to worry about is, am I just mistaking this genre? There's no philosophy here at all. It's just poetry. But I think that's unattractive, because metaphors are still metaphors for something. And because all of these metaphors seem to be talking about something pre-existing in the general category of wisdom, and some sort of relationship to the textual traditions of Judaism, i.e. the written and oral Torah, it seems to me like a worthy question to flesh out accepting just for the sake of argument that it's true, then we'll investigate whether or not. Before I can investigate whether or not I believe in this thing, I need to know what it is they're saying. So, nameless person, thank you for your question.
My name is Max Sussman.
Okay.
I'm just a simple microbiologist. And it seems to me, you see, if you want to, I don't want to hog this, there are other people here who are cleverer than I am, but if a metaphor means that something which it's describing or which it modifies or whatever your term is, that creates it, then the Torah is a metaphor, and that's why it exists.
Okay, thank you.
I'm happy to let go of this.
Thank you. Yeah.
Hi Sam, thank you.
Hi.
Here's an idea. So, Torah, at some point in history, in human history, replaced idolatry. It was specifically replacing idolatry as a response to existential question. Why are we here? What are we supposed to be doing whilst we're here? And when I say Torah, I'm not really sure what I mean, because it could be Pentateuch, it could be Torah Sheba'al Peh, it could be something wider than that. It seems to me that the primordial Torah, Torah Kadmon, is a construct that was created by Chovevei Torah, lovers of Torah, to further root and embellish its usefulness, its truthfulness, its beauty, and that's all it needs.
Okay, so that. Thank you, John. Thank you, Jonathan. That certainly could be the case. There are two. That certainly could be the case, that the Torah Kadmon was constructed because of certain sociological and historical agendas. But there are two very different questions. There's the question, why did anyone ever think this stuff up? Right, that's a historical, sociological question, and it's an important question. There's another question, what was it they were thinking? Can you give me a clear account of what it is they were thinking? And the third question is, irrespective of what the reason was for their thinking it up, does it also happen to be viable and true? Okay. Now, in Jewish studies departments, what tends to happen is Jewish ideas get studied historically and sociologically. Why did the Hasidic mystics come up with all this crazy stuff? What political and social agendas did they have, and what sorts of idols were they trying to break? Another question is, but forgetting about what caused these ideas to come about, and also forgetting about whether they're true, what are the ideas? And we have a fuzzy literature, a poetic literature, that seems to talk about this ideal Torah, and to talk about a relationship between that ideal Torah and the Pentateuch and the oral Torah. The job of the sociologist, anthropologist, and historian, and it's an important job, is to tell us what caused these ideas to be born, what were the agendas of the people thinking them up. And the jobs of the philosophers are, first of all, to give a much clearer account of what they were probably saying, and then to investigate its plausibility. And we should remember that just because an idea was thought up in response to a political, social, or whatever agenda, doesn't mean that it's not true. For instance, I can explain why it is that I believe in democracy anthropologically and sociologically. It's because I was born in the West. Likelihood is, if I was born in China, I would believe in a different political theory. But that doesn't ipso facto mean that democracy is false, just because I only happen to have come up with it because of a social agenda, or come to believe in it because of a socio-historical context. Two questions. Why is it that people come up with the beliefs they come up with? Another question, is it true? And it might strike people as really bizarre for me to be able to accept, oh yeah, they only came up with the Torah Kadmon because they were fighting against idolatry. And still to accept, oh, and they're also right. It exists, and it stands in this relationship to the Pentateuch, or...
So can I just come back?
Yes.
First of all, the analogy to democracy is not fair, because democracy is not truth. It's just a political system. It's not. You can't say democracy is the truth.
No, I don't think that's right. I think democracy. So everybody here, right? So I think democracy it's a political theory that includes certain ethical maxims which are either true or false. It's certainly liberal democracy, which talks about the moral force of consent and individual autonomy, as opposed to the ethical principles underlying communism. They could be true or false. I think that if I was born in China, it's probable that I would have different views about the value of autonomy, consent, and so on. And that doesn't mean that just because I was caused to have the beliefs I do have about consent and autonomy, that those ideas are ipso facto false. I just need to give a different justification, a philosophical justification.
I know there are several other questions, and quite right too, but I'm going to stop it at this moment. There will be a chance for Q&A afterwards to both our speakers, and maybe you can trickily disguise them as general questions when we get there.
Also, if anybody would like to read the full paper, I have a draft of a full paper about this problem, with no answers, but this problem. You could just come and get my email address, or look me up on Facebook and harangue me for it.
Thank you very much.